G'day everyone, welcome back to another video. Finally, you're probably saying, right? It's been a while. I've actually been really sick this week, so I haven't been able to do a lot on the bus, and I've just been sort of doing little bits and pieces and didn't really feel like being in front of the camera. So apologies for the delay in getting this next video out. So the next big thing I want to put in the bus is my table. Of course, like many things in a bus conversion, you have to finish off certain things before you can move on to the next thing. Before I can install the table, I needed to finish off a couple of things on either side of where it's going. So one of the things I need to do is finish off the side of the kitchen cabinet that you saw in my last video. I need to finish cladding the side of that and also put a little door on the side where the stove slides in and out. And then on the other side of where the table's going is just inside the entrance door to my bus. And there were some things that I needed to do in that space as well before I can go ahead and install the table. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, just working in the entryway of the bus. So I'll show you what I've been up to. So the first thing you'll notice is that I actually cleaned up this entrance step here. I haven't done anything with this step since I bought the bus, so it's pretty much as it was after I took the automatic door opener out. Thankfully, it's in pretty good condition except for just being really filthy. There's a very minimal rust. It's mostly just where the paint's been scratched off. In fact, the rust was so minimal, I didn't even bother trying to sand it or anything. I just gave it all a really good clean and then painted the entire step area with Penetrol, which will help to seal in the rust and prevent it from getting any worse. Once that was dry, I painted a couple of coats of Rust Guard primer, and then on top of that a couple of coats of the Rust Guard enamel. And the next thing I did was to create a mounting area for one of the fire extinguishers that I'm having in the bus. So you remember I framed out these walls that are at the very front of the bus. This one's right behind the passenger seat. I obviously still need to clad this wall, but what I did was underneath here, I actually boxed in a little bit of that so that I could mount the fire extinguisher bracket onto there. So basically all it does is pulls out from the wall like that. This is actually the fire extinguisher and the bracket that came with the coaster originally. I forget where it was mounted. I think it was actually under one of the seats, or it might have been up the back. But I've just got it bolted in through some thick timber here underneath, so it's not going anywhere. So that's easy to get at from either inside or outside the bus. Hopefully I will never need to use it, but it's obviously one of those things that is essential to have in a motorhome. And it's actually one of the requirements for motorhome registration that you have at least one fire extinguisher in the bus. I'm actually going to have two. There'll be another one up the back eventually. But anyway, so that one there now is good to go. And then on the other side of the entranceway, I've built this little wall. It's actually not finished yet. This is as far as I've got so far. It's a bit hard to see, this light, but you can see here I've just built a set of timber shelves, and I'll be able to use those for storing bits and pieces that I need quick access to from outside the bus, things like sunscreen, insect repellent. I'm going to have a couple of hooks at the front for hanging Pepper's harness and lead, and there'll be space in there for doggy bags and all sorts of stuff. And I've done it in such a way that I can still close this door, because if I come in the bus and show you, my coaster has the style of door that slides out down the side of the bus. Some people have the bifold doors that open this way. I needed to allow space for the door arm to come in, because when the door closes, you can see it actually comes in inside the bus. So I made sure to just design the shelves around that so I can still open and close the door as needed. Now I know some of you are going to want to see in detail how I did those shelves, and like I said, because I've been sick, I didn't really feel like doing a lot of filming or explaining as I was making things, so I apologize for that. But I did get some footage of me building it, so I'll show you what I did and I'll talk you through some of it. One of the first challenges I had, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to cover up this part of the step, was because I was left with this awkward kind of bracket welded to the side of the stairwell after I took the automatic door opener out, and also this large hole in the floor where the cables for the opener went. So all I did was got a few pieces of the 42 by 19 millimeter pine and screwed them into the side of the stairwell. That brought the wall out to pretty much level with where that bracket was, and then I just covered the whole lot with a piece of 7mm ply. To cover up the hole in the floor, I laid down a piece of form ply, which was sealed on the bottom, and then I built my first little shelf on top of that. So most of the timber that I used to make this shelf was just bits of old pine shelving that I already had in the shed. And I also used some scrap pieces of the pine lining boards that I'm going to be using in other places in my bus. And once I had this part of the shelf built, I then put another piece on top, which was screwed into this bit of the shelf and also into the main floor of the bus. If I ever need to remove this trim again, like if I want to repaint the step or, I don't know, replace the vinyl or something, I'll actually be able to just unscrew this shelf and pull it out, because the rest of the wall here will actually be built around it and won't be attached to this piece at all. Then to make the main shelf unit, I basically had two main uprights, one on either side. The upright closest to the wall was actually in two pieces, just so I could go around the door arm that's attached to the wall. And I just screwed that onto the side wall of the bus. And then the upright that's closest to the center of the bus is just a single piece of pine shelving, and it's screwed into the floor of the bus with pocket hole screws. I've got a bit of bracing at the bottom between the two uprights, and that's screwed into the uprights themselves as well as into the floor. So that makes the base of the shelf unit pretty sturdy. And then I basically just put my shelves in between these two upright sections and just secured them at each end with pocket hole screws. So there's a few things I still need to do now to finish this off. I want to put a couple of rails across the front to stop the things on the shelves sliding forward. I'm actually going to be sort of enclosing this top one a little bit more so that I can actually sit things down into it. And then once I've done all that, I'm going to come and put a piece of ply just to close off the back of it. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to finish off the little bits and pieces that I need to do on this shelf. I just used 3mm ply to cover up the back section of this shelf so that you couldn't see the studs, and also to clad the entire back of the shelf unit. And then I used some scrap pieces of pine lining boards to make the rails for the fronts of the shelves. The stain that I used here was Cabot's Interior Stain in a walnut colour, and I basically just brushed it on the whole thing and then wiped it off straight away with the cloth. So I didn't leave the stain on very long. At some stage I'm going to have to seal the entire thing with a clear varnish as well, just to protect the timber. Okay, well this is the finished result. I'm pretty happy with that. This cable here that's still hanging out of the door arm was part of the original automatic door opener, so I'll be getting rid of that at some stage. But yeah, I've got plenty of shelf storage there for bits and bobs. You can see how I did each shelf. I basically just cut a notch from one edge of each shelf to fit around the door arm here. And I just did the height of my various shelves so that they would accommodate these two pieces of the arm that actually swing in. So this shelf here, I'm obviously going to be a little bit limited in as to the height of the things I can put in, because this arm will come and swing into half of this shelf. But this one won't be an issue, and the bottom one is fine as well. And this section at the very top here, you can see I've left it open, and that's because I want to be able to actually sit things down in there. So I'm thinking like a box of tissues, my sunnies, and maybe a little pot plant or something. And I did that so that they can just sit in the top there and won't fall out. Ignore these pieces of masking tape here. They're actually marking where I have some studs running down inside the back here. And that will tell me when I come to attach the table support on this side, I'll know where I can screw that into. So that's all that is. And you can see I've actually cut a little notch in the top shelf as well, even though it didn't have to go around the door arm. If you can see that there, it lines up with the other notches. And the reason for that is because down the track when I come to do my electrical, I'm going to have an overhead cabinet running out to here, and I'm actually going to be feeding some of my cables from underneath that overhead cabinet down the wall here and into this, because what they'll do is they'll go down in those gaps that I've got behind where the door arm is and come out under here, and I'll have a power point under my table here for printer and sewing machine and some other things that I want to be able to use at the table. So that's why I've left that little notch there, so that I can feed my cables down through that and out. And I'll probably do a little bit more to trim this top bit up and just make it a little bit nicer, but I'm going to wait until after that electrical's done, because then I'll have a better idea of how I'm going to cover up the cables on this part of the wall as well and kind of fit it into that. So for now, that's done, and I'm pretty happy with that.